Hello everyone, welcome to the Auto Dreamer 77 YouTube channel. I figured I'd come over and once again show the 54 a little bit and try to give you a little more of a backstory on it, and I've since come to realize this actually isn't a delivery, that was a panel the whole way back. This one is a truck, and you tell on these by the hood emblems. This one is a 3800 medium duty truck. So it has the 235 cubic inch inline 6-cylinder. And since last time I showed you, the grill has been reinstalled. And looks like it's actually even somewhat shined up. So that's probably about how it's going to be, at least for the grill and the two front fenders, when everything's said and done. I mean, he's got a whole lot more cleaning to do, but you can see he's just letting those battle scars shine right there. So it's going to have the Survivor patina look. And there's a little better shot of the inline 6 engine. This is a 235 cubic inch. Chevy had run the inline 6s for quite a few years prior to this. In fact, this style of truck, I believe this was about the last year they produced them. They may have rolled over into 55 a little bit, but, and as a matter of fact, I'm not 100% sure this isn't a 55, because I'm told the 54s are supposed to still have a torque tube, and I see no torque tube. I just see a drive shaft. So this may in fact be a 55. I'm looking for the identifying placarding that's supposed to be on the door or door pillar. It's not on the driver's side. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. It's blue and white, which is consistent with after 53. It also has the bullnose grill, which is a 54 and early 55 grill. So it's one or the other. This is rated at 8,800 pounds gross, and it has 105 horsepower at 3,600 RPM. So there's a little more specifications for you. It did at one time have a rating, but as far as the story of the truck goes, and this was my grandfather's at one time. I'm not 100% sure if it was a stake side or if it was just the flatbed. You know, the flatbed, more or less, they just built stakes on it and called it a stake side. So I'm not sure what it started life as. I know my grandfather built the current bed sides that are on it and the current tailgate. So, but he owned it, and when he owned it, he hauled farm equipment, as in there's a 1945 Case bucket tractor that my dad also has. Grandfather hauled that tractor on the back of this. It just barely fit, but it would go down the road just fine. And grandfather would do that, as well as he had a small salvage operation on his property back in the days before salvage operations were regulated. So he had basically a junkyard in the one field, and he'd use that bucket tractor to get certain parts off if he couldn't get to it the way the car was sitting. So he'd put the tractor on the truck to go move cars, get underneath them, take off what he needed to take off. Then he'd move the tractor again to come up and clean the barn, because they had dairy, just enough to get by basically. They weren't doing the farming for profit, but that was enough dairy to, you know, supply for 7 kids and the 3 or 4 adults that were in the house. So he'd clean the barn with that tractor. He would go ahead and do what he had to do in the scrapyard with that tractor, and also then he'd take that tractor out into the field and raise the necessary feed for the cattle, some vegetables. So yeah, this truck had a lot to do with how they got things done when my grandfather ran that farm and salvage yard. And this engine's been rebuilt, to my knowledge, at least twice. The first time by grandfather, the second time by my dad. And after my grandfather passed, I believe the truck stayed for a little while in the family until grandmother also passed, at which time I was very young. This was probably 1981 or 2. And it was snatched up at the auction by a local business, an excavating concrete business. And when they snatched it up, they put it into service as an explosives truck. So this was placarded for explosives. The dynamite mat, which is a huge mat made out of cable, I mean the cable was at least an inch in diameter, if not 2. The mat would get folded in about quarters and put in this bed. And like I said, there were placards on the side. That's what this rust is from the magnetic placard sitting there. Placards on the side, and they also carried explosives. Now, along came the year that I started working there, which was, I believe, 1994. And I had my driver's license. And the boss wanted me to go out to some job sites where they were doing the explosive work. But, of course, being a minor, I couldn't have my certification. So, since I did not have an explosive certification, they took the placards off of this truck, put the explosives in the rig that was carrying the heavy equipment out, like backhoe or whatever we needed on the job site at the time. And I drove this with just the mat on the back. And let me tell you, I'm not sure if there's some sort of synchro mesh that was supposed to come on this or not, but it's definitely not a synchro by today's standards. You still shift this thing by pushing the clutch pedal when you disengage and pushing the clutch pedal when you engage into the next gear. Oh, look, it also had the locking gas cap. Now, back then, that was another option. This thing had just about all the bells and whistles. So, it's all service at the excavating company until, I believe, 1996, when they dropped it from service because being near the Carlisle Productions car shows, apparently someone had tried to steal doors off of it at one point and failed. They were not properly affixed anymore. So the boss, instead of having this vehicle coming up without doors, decided he was going to store it inside of a building. And it remained there until he passed. And then during the auction where the owner of this business had passed, the company decided to let go of a few assets. This was one of them. And at that auction, my dad went ahead and bought his dad's truck back. And it stayed where it was at in storage because my dad actually worked there too. So until my dad retired, it just stayed there in storage back in a dusty corner, you know, out of the weather. And then came the time my dad retired. And when my dad retired, I got a phone call. Can you and your son come along on a ride with me? Absolutely, Dad. Well, you know, come pick us up. We'll go right along with you. Didn't tell us why. And we got where we were going in a lowboy, mind you. This is a, you know, commercial lowboy tractor trailer. And we get to one of the buildings that the company owned. And Dad says, okay, I'm going to be loading something on this trailer. And you know, I'm going to need a little hand with that. So, okay, no problem. So he goes into the building, and apparently he'd already been there before to rig up the gas can and get the engine to fire and all that happiness, because he drove this thing right out, and he ran it right up on the back of that lowboy. Drove the lowboy here, and he backed it right off the lowboy. And it went into one of the other outbuildings for a little while. And it sat there for, you know, a few months. And now at this point, Dad's back on it. He's going to bring this thing back, and his plans are, because this was his dad's truck originally, he wants to do his dad proud and run this thing in a few parades. There's a particular parade nearby that involves farm equipment and antique trucks. And I think that's the one he wants to take it to in full patina with the tractor on the back once he gets that going, which is a 1945 Case bucket tractor. It's got, I don't know what the front axle's called, but it's not the spread out front wheels. It's the two of them that are right together and they angle in. I don't know if they call that a row crop or what it is. I'm not real up on my tractor specs. So, I mean, if anybody wants to correct me in the comments on there, please feel free. Like I said, the front axle, just kind of the two tires came together, and they got real high-rise back tires. I don't know if I'll be able to get into it. If I could, I'd show you, but for right now, I'm just letting y'all get a little bit of a closer look at what I believe is a 1954 Chevrolet 3800 truck. At least I was told it's a 54. Being that it doesn't have the torque tube, it makes me wonder if it's not an early 55. But yeah, it's the 3800. Yeah, medium duty is what that was. And it doesn't get anywhere in a hurry. I mean, and first gear gets you a whopping 3 miles an hour. But when you want to haul something or pull something, this truck will do it. If it has the traction, it will do it. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I will be bringing you more updates on this 50s era truck here. And I will also be bringing you updates on whatever I happen to have, which right now is that F-150. But today I wanted to take a break and give you a little bit of a backstory on the truck. That's the air cleaner and carburetor. Definitely doesn't look a whole lot like the engines of today, but it was, you know, it was very good for what it was. Very durable engine. Ah, it wasn't 96 it was decommissioned, it was 98. Here's a little bonus for you farm and tractor guys. This is some of the farm equipment that was used along with the 45 case. I can't get into the 45 case right now, but this is the plow that used to pull the fields open at my grandfather's property. And there's the disc harrow. These were used very hard back then. They get used seldom today, but we did have a garden going here at my dad's property for quite a few years. And they have seen use in my lifetime. As a matter of fact, I drove the case a couple of times with the plow, pulled a few rows. I just didn't have the leg when I was 12 years old to engage that brake fully. And anybody who knows about those old tractors will understand that one. Also, don't forget, I'm still wearing the blue, and this is Autism Awareness Month. Be sure to check out autismspeaks.org for more information. Thank you. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Bye now.